Hey everyone, it's Steven. Today I have the 2022 Porsche Macan GTS. Now this is going to be a pretty special review to me because this is my brand new personal vehicle. I took delivery of this gorgeous Macan GTS back in August of 2022, put on about 2,500 miles as of right now, and wanted to do a comprehensive review for you guys now. The Macan is Porsche's entry into the hotly contested luxury compact SUV market, and Porsche gave their best-selling vehicle a mild refresh for the 2022 model year. Three main things changed with this mild refresh. So you've got a new front grille. This one is a little different, and the GTS actually has a different grille than the non-GTS one. So the base and the S trims actually have a different grille, and they also changed the rear diffuser a little bit in the back, making it a bit more sporty looking. On the interior, they gave it some new haptic buttons in the center console, so it looks a bit more modern. Finally, they removed the turbo trim and shuffled up the engines throughout each trim. So the GTS here actually has the strongest engine in the lineup now. So the Macan GTS for 2022 starts at just below $80,000 for the MSRP. And the one I have tested here actually is $110,000, spec'd out with $30,000 of options. I definitely wanted to get the best of the best, make sure the car actually lives up to that Porsche name and has a really, really nice interior to kind of match that. So this GTS comes with a 2.9 liter V6 twin turbocharged engine, makes 434 horsepower and 405 pound-feet of torque. That gives you 0 to 60 times with about 4.3 and 4.1 seconds with launch control, which is crazy fast for a vehicle this size. I mean, it is pretty much a glorified hot hatch. This car is actually one of the smallest vehicles in its segments. Competitors like the X3M are going to be a lot larger actually than this car. It's actually really interesting. This car feels significantly smaller, almost like a sedan sometimes. And you know, other competitors like the Jaguar F-Type SVR and the AMG GLC63, those have much stronger engines actually, putting out 500 horsepower plus, and those are actually faster, but they don't handle quite like the Porsche does. All of this power is mated to a 7-speed dual-clutch automatic transmission with standard all-wheel drive throughout the entire lineup. So the base, the S, and the GTS all have standard all-wheel drive. This gives you fuel economy numbers about 17 city, 22 highway for a combined total of about 19 miles per gallon. Pretty standard in the class, definitely a bit of a gas guzzler. Now, if fuel economy is something you're worried about, Porsche has actually announced that the Macan EV is going to be coming out in the 2024 model year. So if you want to get the electric version of this, look out for an announcement about that probably within the next few months. Now let's chat through the exterior of this gorgeous car. So the color I chose here is actually called Chalk, which is such a unique color. I love that it's like kind of gray, but also kind of white in certain lights. So the front grille, like I said, in 2022, they redesigned it a little bit. It's actually really interesting. They added a lot more plastic and like some black textures on this grille to make it a bit more fierce looking. And it kind of looks weird straight up because it looks like it's smiling at you all the time. I feel like the other Macans look a little bit better, honestly, but this grille did grow on me. I will say though that the black plastic only matches certain colors. So with Chalk, it looks really stunning, but with certain colors, it can look pretty weird. Another interesting thing to know about the front is that if you get the adaptive cruise control package, which is about $1,000, you get that little interesting eyeball looking thing at the front, which some people don't like. I think it looks fine because of all the black around it, but some people don't really like that. Going to the headlights here, these are gorgeous classic traditional Porsche headlights. Daytime running lights look amazing. They just turned off. Okay, now the lights are back on, and they look really good, full LEDs, and they actually do corner as well. So when you're turning the steering wheel, they'll turn in that direction, which is really cool for illuminating some dark roads. So now going to the side profile, I love these wheels, 21-inch blacked out RS Spider wheels. So this one actually comes default with the GTS, which I really appreciate. I actually really love the turbo wheels as well. I mean, there's like 15 different wheel options on the Porsche website, but this one kind of won out for me because I just think it looks great with the Chalk color. You've got classic red brake calipers. That's also just a standard thing for the GTS, obviously being the sporty trim. And I actually wish you could kind of paint them different colors. Porsche doesn't really offer any other colors aside from black, which I don't know, doesn't seem that interesting. I like the red, it kind of pops with the rest of the color scheme of this car. And then going through, the classic thing about the Macan is going to be that side blade. So that one has the GTS word on it. I don't know if you can really see it, but it has GTS printed on the side blade, which is a pretty neat addition. And I think it looks pretty neat. I actually love the look of the black plastic alongside the Chalk and the rest of the vehicle. Otherwise, the side profile is pretty classic SUV. Like I said, you can really tell that it's a pretty small vehicle. It's not too high up or anything like that. Going into the rear here, you've got the classic full light bar in the rear, which I love. Porsche started doing this with the 2019 redesign, and I mean, I love this look for the Macan. I think it looks fantastic. You've got the Macan GTS blacked out. All of it is blacked out, actually. The Porsche lettering also is blacked out. And you've actually got this really interesting clear light bar. That's a thing that comes standard with a GTS. It's like about $1,000 option for the non-GTS trims, but I really like it with the chalk color. Again, all of these things kind of look different depending on what color you get, and Porsche's paint colors are just fantastic. I really encourage you guys to look at the configurator and play around with it because you can spend hours doing that. So going into the actual trunk space here, the button is actually hidden underneath this windshield wiper, which is pretty neat. You've got 17.2 cubic feet of cargo space, a decent amount, but again, like my last vehicle I drove had like 15 cubic feet of cargo space, and that was a sedan. So I mean, relatively similar to a sedan, but you do have a bit more space and depth, and you actually can go underneath the, you can store a few small things underneath the actual lift here, but most of it is for that spare tire. The last thing I wanted to cover in the rear here is arguably the most important part of the GTS, the exhaust. You've got quad exhaust tips, they are blacked out and they look fantastic, and they also sound fantastic. Let's take a listen right now. Let's go into the interior of this gorgeous car now. You can hear that amazing exhaust sound from outside. Just got this cleaned. It is quite snowy here right now. So going into the interior, I'm not going to cover this too much in depth because I have a lot of other Porsche reviews and they kind of use the same interior throughout. I did a lot of cool stuff to this interior, at least cool in my opinion. I got a lot of carbon fiber stuff, probably almost about $10,000 worth of carbon fiber stuff. You can see the carbon fiber on the steering wheel, the carbon fiber shifter right here, and the carbon fiber trim throughout the vehicle. I think it really matched the chalk interior and exterior, so I really like that. The clock up there also is chalk in the background. Big fan of that one. And then of course the seats are also lined with a chalk stitching, which I love. You've got the chalk GTS logo there as well, and I just think this interior is stunning. I love these 18-way adaptive seats. They've got such gorgeous race-tex, as Porsche calls it, really just their version of Alcantara leather, and just super comfortable seats. I think the interior is just fascinating because you can go from a very bare bones interior to something as lavish as this, right? You've got the chalk seat belt, I love it, and I just think the interior looks fantastic. There is such little plastic, if any. I actually struggle to find any plastic aside from maybe like cup holders and stuff like that, right? But like everything else is like leather or soft touch stitched material here. The dash, all throughout the dash, steering wheel is comfortable up here as well. But of course that was like a $10,000 leather package. So actually I think it was like 6,000 or something like that. But yeah, it's just like, it's so interesting how much you can change up Porsche interiors with their whole bespoke model. So like I said, I'm not going to go too much into depth about this one. The Macan hasn't really changed its interior in quite a while now. So with the last refresh, you've got the new 10.9-inch infotainment system here. This is a touchscreen, pretty large, but as you can see, Apple CarPlay only takes up about 2/3 of it. So not my favorite thing because at the end of the day, I want it to take up the whole thing. That is a thing in the new PCM 6. So this is running PCM, what people call PCM 5.5, which is kind of a middle ground where you do have some of the updated stuff here, but not as nice as PCM 6, what you find in like the 911 and the new Cayenne. So I can link you guys the review of the new Cayenne and the Porsche Taycan. I've done a lot of Porsche reviews lately since I bought one, so I was very interested in Porsches for a while. It's smooth to respond, very smartphone-like, right? And like it's easy to navigate the menus. Like I don't know, overall, like I do like the system a lot. It is an easy system to use. Apple CarPlay, wireless Apple CarPlay has worked flawlessly. It does take a little bit to connect, so there's a bit of lag. You'll notice I also got the Burmeister sound system, which was a $5,000 upgrade as well, but honestly, for an audiophile, I do think it's worth every penny. I really, really enjoy this audio system. The Burmeister sound system just has so much more clarity and depth to the sound, and it's far better than the Bose. I will say though that the base Bose system, if you're not too into the music, if you really want to hear that engine sound, then maybe you don't need to upgrade to the Burmeister, right? It is a ridiculously expensive upgrade. A little hard to see in this lighting right here, but that center analog tachometer right there is actually chalk as well, which is a pretty neat look. You've got, of course, paddle shifters as you would expect. This is the new steering wheel, which is nice. It has the skip track button. I love it. You've got the Sport Chrono drive shift selector, so you can go to sports. You might even hear the low rumble there. You're this fasten seatbelt thing. And you can go to Sport Plus. The car is actually lowering even more. I'll actually show you guys here a video of basically what it looks like lowering and raising. It's pretty cool. You can raise the ride height from a lot of different places, and it's kind of like a little roller coaster ride when you do this. It gets a little dizzying actually, but it's pretty neat. Aside from that, steering wheel is a classic steering wheel. I did have a lot of issues with how thin the steering wheel is at first. I really like the more bolstered ones that like Mercedes and Audi uses, but over time I really came to like this. So I don't know, if you don't like it at first, I think give it a try, and I think you will get used to it. I think this is actually one of my favorite steering wheels now. It's just easy to use, precise steering. Like I love it. The biggest change on the 2022 model is going to be these haptic buttons in the center console here. So you do have a digital display for the temperature, and I think, you know, this is probably a good middle ground between fully digital and still having a physical button, right? This is not really a physical button, you know, but at the same time, it's easy to shift. I will say though that it's a little hard to be driving, you know, and then just look down, or not look down and then try and adjust these, which is kind of the problem with the digital temperature controls. Otherwise, you have a lot of buttons here. I mean, like all of these things, like how often do people really change this stuff? I don't really know. These sort of things are, a lot of them are tied to different drive modes, right? So when you put on Sport, for example, let me do that, you'll see that those things turn on. Sport Plus, even more, right? So at the end of the day, like I don't ever really click these manually. I'm sure some people might want to, but yeah, you've got an off-road mode, you've got hill control, lane departure assist, auto stop start engine. I do think this shift knob could be a little more interesting looking. I do love the carbon on this, but though it was like a $600 package, which I'm really not sure if it was worth it at the end of the day. But the shift knob is easy to use, pretty traditional. Porsche likes to keep things traditional to kind of keep up with their racing heritage. One of the really cool things that Porsche does is actually have a fake like ignition key essentially. So you can actually get it painted the same color as your vehicle outside. So I actually ordered this off of Suncoast, which is like basically they provide OEM Porsche parts, and got this for like $100, whereas when you get it from Porsche it's like $500, something like that. But just a little painted ignition thing, and this is actually what you use to turn off and turn on the car. So kind of interesting, definitely takes a little bit of getting used to. Let's see if I can reach. Yeah, so and I hope you heard that exhaust, it sounds fantastic. All right, and before stepping out to the second row, you can see I've got carbon fiber door sills here as well that light up and say Macan GTS. Right now I have the all-weather mats that say Porsche. It is a neat look, I like it a lot. And then you can also see those gorgeous Burmeister speaker caps. They're kind of all throughout the cabin, and I really like it because you can tell that things look very luxurious here, right? Look at that, it's gorgeous. Otherwise, door panel's pretty standard, but like I said, this is all soft touch material, all leather, Alcantara right here, right? Like, nothing feels cheap when you're speccing it out like this. When you have the base $80,000 GTS though, some of the interior is going to feel cheap, but you get that same amazing performance, right? Which is really at the end of the day probably what most people want with this. All right, now going into the second row of this vehicle, you can see you've still got the same carbon fiber trim, leather, Alcantara right there, and Burmeister speaker cap, and the Porsche mat. All right. Don't want to get this dirty, I just cleaned everything. Okay, so going to the second row here, you can see you've got some footwell lighting. One interesting thing to note is that the Macan does not offer ambient lighting, so instead you get this really interesting U-shape, the horseshoe I think they call it, and it's a nice like light ambient lighting. It's not too bright or anything like that. You can adjust the brightness of it as well. It looks pretty nice, I think. It's probably better than having no ambient lighting, but I really wish you could change the color of it. It would make this car so much more appealing to some people. You've got a huge panoramic sunroof. I love that. Makes the car feel very, very airy. And an interesting seat back here too, right? You've got leather, you've got some hard touch plastic here, plastic up here as well. And then you've got some airplane style little seat folder cover things. So overall, the cabin is still luxurious in the back here. You don't have a digital display here, unfortunately, which I think is a little weird given the price of this vehicle, but you do have your own heated seat controls here for the two rear passengers. Aside from that, you do have some USB-C charging, and again, like, I think this is ample legroom for most people. I do think if you're pretty tall, this can feel a little small, for sure. Let me show you guys here basically how legroom and headroom looks. You know, with the little sloped roofline in the back, I do think that, you know, some taller folks might have a hard time with their knees and their head touching the ceiling, but I think you really have to be above 6 feet or so to kind of get that. I'm 5'8", and I feel very comfortable in this rear here. So yeah, a decent amount of space, and I will say this seat is pushed back pretty far right here. But you can see like the interior of the rear here still looks quite stunning. You've got those chalk seat belts, Alcantara seat inserts as well, and just overall a great airy cabin. All right, now for the most important part of this video, the actual driving experience. So this car is such a hoot to drive. I don't know how else to kind of explain it, right? I don't think anyone drives this and feels like this isn't a real Porsche. This is a GTS model, right? You can drive the base Macan and kind of understand that that 2-liter Turbo 4 isn't the most inspiring thing, right? But with this car, you feel power, you feel agile, you feel that sport suspension really kick in, the steering firms up, everything feels so much more sporty. And I really think even like the purest Porsche enthusiasts will still find the Macan a compelling vehicle. I think a lot of people will knock this out without really, you know, experiencing the driving. All right, I just put myself in Sport Plus. Can you already hear the exhaust? I'm gonna take a little slow right here. You can already hear the burbles there, and let's punch it. Insanely fast. Insanely fast. And those pops and crackles sound amazing in the back there. Also, that weird whoop whoop sound is their lane departure warning. Super strange sound. But as you can hear, or as you can see, or maybe not hear, but you can feel at least inside the cabin how firm the suspension is when you switch it to Sport Plus. I'm going to switch it back to normal, and immediately everything just feels so much more quiet. And I think that's such an amazing part of this vehicle, is that dual personality. When you put it in Sport or Sport Plus, the exhaust, the sound, plus the agility of this car. And then when you put it in Comfort normal mode, it's just such a smooth ride. I think that's honestly why I bought this vehicle, because I don't always want to be in sport mode, right? I want to be able to go on a highway ride and feel like I'm in a quiet cruiser, right? I want that luxury experience, but at the same time, when I want to have fun, I want to also be able to punch it like that. So this car just does such a great job at kind of blending those personalities. And, you know, that's something I think that the Volkswagen Group does well in Audi as well. Audi and Porsche both have a good, you know, sense of refinement and luxury in the interior, but at the same time, they are also a lot of fun. Of course, with Audis, you have to step up to the RS or something like that, but, you know, pretty equivalent to what I have here, I think. At the end of the day, what's going to be on every buyer's mind when it comes to a Porsche Macan, especially the GTS, is always going to be the price. This car is the best you can get. It really is. Like, I think, like, just period, right? Like, there isn't any other compact SUV that can really give you the same performance and luxury, fit and finish, reliability, everything that Porsche offers you. Just that insanely amazing engineering, right? Legendary engineering. So that's the one thing Porsche can offer you, but it's also going to offer you the highest price tag, and that is kind of without a doubt, right? Like, you can spec an X3M competition to the max, and I don't even think it would, you know, get near this $110,000 price tag. So at the end of the day, this car is the most expensive, but it is also the best you can get. Kind of the same thing goes for the Macan, right? When people are looking for luxury compact SUVs, even the base Macan, you're thinking, comparing it to things like the GLC, the X3, even the Lexus NX, things like that. At the end of the day, the Porsche is the most expensive, but it's going to be the best vehicle you can get in terms of all-around attributes. Fun, quiet, compliant, luxury, all of that comes with this Porsche, but it comes with that highest price tag. So if you want the best of the best, I really think you get the Macan. If you want the best performance, overall performance, not the quickest 0 to 60 time, again, those competitors like the X3M competition are going to have faster 0 to 60 times in a more burly engine. But this car is small, and it gets you that hatchback feeling ride, kind of like a Golf R, right? Like, it's just so much fun, but such an extravagant price tag. But at the same time, you do have that practicality of having that larger trunk space, and you can definitely fit 4 adults in this car. 5 will probably be a little uncomfortable in the rear, but you can do it. And, you know, I don't think you can say that for the same as, you know, some sedans and hot hatches out there. At the end of the day, this car truly is a 10 out of 10 vehicle. There are those rare vehicles out there that, you know, do everything that they set out to do well, and the Porsche Macan does it. It is more practical than a 911. You still get some of that great performance. It's not going to be the same thing as a 911, obviously, but you get that practicality, you get the convenience of having a larger lifted vehicle that you can maybe off-road with, things like that, right? And you know, for me, honestly, one of the biggest things was having the ride height of an SUV. I really appreciate that, and I don't know, I like the more airy feel of an SUV. I think coming from the Lexus ES350, kind of a weird transition, I think, but in the past 2,500 miles with this vehicle, I've loved every second of it. I don't ever have any regret with any of this. I think, you know, speccing out the Porsche to the Porsche of your dreams is probably going to be worth it, considering you are already dropping a lot of money for that Porsche, right? You know, some people will get the base GTS, which is $80,000, right? And, you know, there are probably about $10,000 worth of things that I think are pretty much requirements. But aside from, you know, the fancy seats, the sound system, all that sort of stuff, you can get it pretty bare bones around like the $90,000 price tag, which is a lot easier to stomach than $110,000, obviously. And you will still get that phenomenal performance in the same vehicle overall, right? It's going to feel relatively similar, just won't have the same interior luxury that I really wanted with my vehicle. So thank you guys so much for watching. I love this car so much, and I'm so happy I bought it. I've been, it was like an 8-month process since when I put in the actual like offer and then finally got delivery of the vehicle. So it's been a long time coming. I'm very excited to finally drive this around, and hope you guys enjoyed this review. You can check out my other reviews up here and click down here to subscribe, and I will see you guys soon. Thanks a bunch. Bye.